Welcome to the Leading at the Next Level podcast with Dove Development Consulting, the show built to provide ongoing support for your leadership journey. I've got the absolute honor and privilege today to have a conversation with a friend of ours named Emily Cohen. We've known Emily for several years. She just up and changed her last name a year or so ago because she got married to another wonderful friend of ours named Brad Cohen. And Brad, prior to Emily and him getting married, I'd been asking him about adopting me because he's just an absolute rock star. He started his own real estate firm. But he's been amazing for a long, long time. I've just loved the relationship that we've been able to develop with both. Emily's not changed careers, but changed organizations recently, and she's moving into a new market. And that's where she's involved in a whole lot of things, a lot of volunteer work, a lot of community development or opportunities and so on. But her main career, that pays the bills, is in commercial banking. So I wanted to take some time today to chat with her along the theme of leadership and purpose and the different stuff that Cindy and I do so much, but to really tie it back to who Emily is, what makes her tick, and what's so exciting about the different things that she's got going on now. So Emily, with me butchering a little bit of the background and telling the nonsense about me trying to get Brad to adopt me, give us a proper overview of your background and a little bit of the professional experience that you've got today.
Yeah, Wes, I love that. That's so funny. But thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I'm so excited to be here today. And it's been an honor getting to know you and Cindy and just seeing all the amazing work that you all do here in the community to foster strong leadership and strong businesses here in Harrisonburg. And if I may, before we get started, shout out. I feel so grateful that I got to attend your all's Live to Lead event this year. It was fantastic. The networking, the speakers, it was a very professional and impressive event. And I know a lot of hard work and planning went into that. So thank you. And I'm already looking forward to next year.
Well, thank you for saying that. And you're 100% correct. A lot of work and planning went into that for sure. So, we dearly appreciated you being there and being part of the event with us.
It was awesome. And it was awesome to bring that to Harrisonburg. But thank you for the introduction. I am a commercial banker. And Wes, I know when people hear banking, they just can't contain their excitement. Am I right? No, I think a lot of people think banking is just numbers and spreadsheets and paperwork. But Wes, so much of it is about understanding people and learning their goals and helping them make smart, confident decisions. So I'm really excited to jump into today's conversation. I'll start out with a little bit of my background. I've been in banking for about 6 years now. I started out in credit and underwriting, so a little bit kind of on the back side of things, analyzing financials, assessing risk. And I really got to build a strong foundation there of how businesses operate financially. And I use that a lot in what I do today, just helping make deals work and how to structure loans that make sense for both the client and the bank. And a lot of that's almost like translating between two different languages. Sometimes you have what credit and underwriting needs, and you have what the client needs and what's going to make sense realistically. So today, a lot of my clients are real estate investors, business owners, entrepreneurs, everything in between. And I help them with financing. So things like a commercial real estate loan, equipment financing, lines of credit. We do construction loans. I've been here at Burke Herbert for coming up on a year now. I'm located right downtown on South Main Street. Many of your listeners may know us formerly as Summit Bank. We completed a merger last November and took on the Burke Herbert name. I love what I do. I love that every day is different. I love doing business development and going out in the community. And I love working directly with clients and helping their businesses grow, hearing their stories and helping them make smart financial decisions.
So Emily, I mentioned before we got this started, I make a list of questions just so I can stay kind of on track, but you said something that I can't help myself. I've got to ask you the question about, you talked about how you more or less help translate between the credit department and the customer. And with so much of the work Cindy and I do, we focus on workplace communication, we focus on fostering collaboration in organizations, and we predominantly use the DISC model of human behavior, not because I pitch assessments, but because I want people to understand where the others are coming from. And we often talk about the importance of communicating in the way that that person needs, not the way I'm just naturally wired. Now, with what you did in your prior role, when you were on the credit side and the analyst role and so on, I can only imagine that that gave you a tremendous understanding of what internally needs to happen at the bank. And I watch the relationships that you build with so many folks, and I'll come to a different point with that shortly, but I watch the relationships you build with so many folks and see how you're so intentional about developing strong relationships and serving people. I can just see it's natural for you to do that translation. I love the word and how you said that. Well done. What's been the most fun part about that translation piece that you mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, I like that. I was definitely more behind the scenes in credit, which, I like to be out and, I love building relationships. I love people. So that was kind of different for me, but I enjoyed, like I say, I built that foundation that if I just jumped right into this today, I wouldn't have. So it's definitely been helpful, in transitioning into the role I'm in today.
Yeah, because often, and I watch this, we've got some really, really close friends that are in banking roles. Interestingly enough, one you used to work with, and others that you know, and so on and so forth. But I hear that same thing about the folks that are in the credit side and doing the approvals and so on. They're often looking at a certain set of criteria, and that's critical. Praise God for those people. But it's often almost contradictory to what the customer wants and needs, and it's connecting those dots. So that relationship piece is so strong. Now, it really leads into the next question I've got. What's really been that clear purpose for you in choosing the role that you're in now, or even other roles that you've been a part of leading up to now?
Yeah, so a couple of things. Like I say, I love building relationships, serving the community, and helping people solve problems. So, I love being a connector and a resource for people. I get energized by the opportunity to make an impact on someone's life. So I think my clear purpose is really to lead with intention and to serve others in a way that creates value. Not only just to help people, but empower them and help connect them and build trust and build those relationships. So, yeah, I've always been drawn to roles where I can do that.
Looking back on our career, Cindy and I just shared this with the group last week. Looking back on our career, one of the most fulfilling things that we've been able to see, whether it's been in full-time roles when we still had full-time jobs, or even now more than ever since we've started our business, seeing the impact that we're able to make on other people and the differences that they're able to recognize in their lives. Give me an example of one of those. This is a little bit off script. Give me an example of one that you're starting to see. You don't need to name names, but maybe a scenario where you were able to make that translation, connect the dots, and leave people better than you found them.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost, it's almost every deal. Every deal is different. There's always something that, you kind of have to make work. I haven't had a deal yet where it's just been cookie cutter and, yep, everything's check mark, check mark, check mark. So yeah, I mean, there's been several examples. There's been one where, a lot of times we're up under a time constraint for a couple different things, but just trying to make all of those line up and fall into place, and making that happen for the customer. So yeah, kind of both, like I say, behind the scenes, and then working with the customer to assure that everything will get done as soon as possible, and in the time that they need.
Yeah, that's so cool. Emily, I grew up as a carpenter before I went into manufacturing, and I often chat with other folks that are in trades of some sort about how cool it is to drive past a building and know, hey, I was part of that. But your role is equally important in that, because if none of those things happen unless there's money, and without the approvals and the connection that you're doing, I don't get to be a carpenter on those jobs. I don't get to have anything to do with the electricity. So I can only imagine that it's pretty cool to drive by projects that you've played a role in and say, hey, I helped there.
Yeah, for sure.
So for you, and this is a fun question because you're still under 30, and I think back to when Cindy and I were in your shoes and so on. What was it that really motivated you to get involved in the idea of leadership development? Because so many people we see get caught up in, I want this title, I want this position that comes with built-in authority. And Emily, that's not leadership. What was it for you that you said, hey, I want to learn influence and develop myself in the leadership aspect, so the authority is just kind of built in? I don't have to rely on the position or title.
Yeah, absolutely. That's right. And I love that. I always say that, I never think leadership is about title. It's so much more about impact and the influence, that you have on people. But as I've been so fortunate to have had people throughout my whole life who have been leaders to me, from amazing parents to coaches to teachers to bosses, who have all helped me, invested in me, challenged me, helped me grow. And it's really been those experiences that, make me so passionate about getting to pay it forward. And that's what's motivated me to take on some of these leadership roles.
Yeah, I love that you listed so many different frameworks: parents, coaches, teachers, bosses, and so on. I mean, I think if you're in your office right now, you're in the same building with one of the folks that really, whether he meant to or not, he mentored me, because he was my boss. He was my boss's boss, to get right down to it, about 32 or 33 years ago. And his name is Oz, and just an absolutely
Oh, cool.
wonderful person. And each time I see him, I try to say, hey, I really appreciate what you sewed into my life. And right now I'm working on a book that's about the importance of professional relationships and what we can learn from it. And the hard part, Emily, is keeping it condensed to stay on topic and not list every single person that I could absolutely list like that. And so I love how you commented on so many different aspects and so many areas of your life that those folks have sewn into you, and how you're working to pay it forward. That's powerful. So
Absolutely.
you've been very involved in the community, and that's the part that when you and Cindy and I caught up over lunch a few weeks ago, we really commented on. It's so impressive to see. For years, from the time we met you, you've been involved in Rotary and the Young Professionals Organization and so many different initiatives. Talk about how that's really played a role in your new role, and how it's really going to allow you to add a different level of value to the relationships that you've been working to cultivate over the time in those community initiatives.
Yeah, I've I've always enjoyed being involved in the community, even in past roles, even in my role in credit, where I was more behind the scenes. I wasn't necessarily expected to be as involved as I was, but I enjoyed it, and I enjoy community, and community has been at the heart of everything I do and everything I'm involved in. So now in commercial banking, I get to serve those same people and those same businesses in a new way. Um, so I think the role that I'm in now almost feels like a full circle moment for me. I get to combine my passion for people and the relationships that I've built in this community, now with what I do for work. So the tools I have and advice and solutions to hopefully help them succeed at a whole new level.
That's everything that I've heard you say to this point has really been tied back to, how do I serve and make a positive impact for the people around you? Well done. We don't have enough people like that. The world would be a whole lot better place. Before I hit the go live button and started the process, I was grumping about some politics that I'd seen and so on and so forth. And if they were on both sides of the aisle and wanted to actually take care of people, we'd probably have a better world. But I'll stay off that.
I love it.
Your husband and I can have that conversation later on.
Yeah.
So, Emily, you've started something, and hopefully this is a little bit of a setup, because I'd love to hear more about it. What would you like the community to know about you that they probably don't know? And how does your Banking with Emily initiative that you've been doing on social media really feed into that?
Yeah. So, I think a lot of people probably see me as, maybe like always on. I'm very energetic and involved and driven. But what they might not know is, I do care deeply about the why behind what I do. For me, it's never just about being busy or showing up to something. I really do enjoy going to events, but, I like to always have a purpose. And not in a selfish or underlying reason way, but rather of making the most out of something. So whether I'm working with a client or a volunteer event or going to a networking event, I want to make sure I'm adding real value and in a way that reflects who I am at my core. So yeah, I'll talk a little bit about Banking with Emily. So I've sort of always had the idea to create videos. I love watching and listening to podcasts like this. And nowadays, just having a presence on social media is so important, and just a great way to stay visible. But Banking with Emily is a page that I started basically so people can know who I am, what I do, and how I can help. I realized that some people had known that I started a new role, but didn't necessarily know what that meant or what I do. So I just wanted to create a space where I could talk about that and talk about banking in a real and approachable way. So my page is really about building trust and connection. I've always said that people bank with people, not just banks. And I think it's important to actually know your banker. So through short videos, I share financial tips, advice, personal stories that are hopefully helpful to young professionals and business owners. So it's been a fun and meaningful way to, try to be a resource and stay visible and hopefully make banking feel a little more approachable.
Um, and it's powerful. I mean, and it takes a while to really build the momentum behind it, but it's so critical. I mean, I think about when I think I was 23 years old, Emily. I had an interview for a position in the company that I was at. It was an internal, not really a promotion, but it was a new job opportunity. And I didn't get it. And I went to one of the guys that was on the interview panel and I says, "Hey, will you give me some feedback?" And he said, "Wes, you've got to talk about you. You didn't talk about what you did. And if you don't talk about you in the interview, nobody else is going to talk about you. So you've got to talk about you." And that whole time, Emily, I'm thinking, shit, that's uncomfortable. But the responsibility was mine. So I had to do it. And I fast forward, gosh, 16 years after that, I remember Cindy and I just got our first website for our business. It was in, I don't know, early mid 2016. A friend of ours had made a website for us at the time, and we were going to do some video because you got to have video on a website, right? And Emily, I was absolutely terrified. I had done training and I'd spoken in front of groups all over the country, all over North America. And when that video light came on and I knew I was being recorded, I was paralyzed. It was awful. I felt like I was in a hostage video. And much like that initial interview, I said, by golly, this ain't going to beat me. I'm going to figure out how to do it. So, and you know how you do it? You just do it. And you do it and you do it. And that's, Cindy and I share that with you, but I'll do it here publicly. We just love and admire what you're doing with that because, hey, you got to teach people. You got to take them on a journey and say, here's the value that I can add, not boastfully, but confidently. And you're doing it. It's stinking cool to watch.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm by no means a professional, but it's fun. It's been fun.
Yeah. Hey, I heard John Maxwell say probably 8, 9, 10 years ago, you're never good the first time. And that gave me permission. I can't be good until I get good. I've got to start. So how do you do it? And I mentioned to you, gosh, early on, nobody's watching anyway. So get the mistakes out of the way. And when you build an audience, now you'll have a little bit of that, the wonkiness worked out.
That is true.
So talk about something. You're involved in so many different things through Rotary, through YPA, through, my goodness, so many things. I don't know how you and Brad have time to do what you do. It's pretty impressive. You don't have kids yet. That's one of the ways you don't have
That's
time.
Right.
You've got time. But talk about a project or a campaign that you've had the opportunity to be involved with and the impact you've seen it make in the community or in a specific industry.
Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about the Young Professionals Association. we've had the Young Professionals group for a little over 3 years now. I think that's right. And how it started was it was basically from a Facebook post. I created a Facebook event. And I was basically like, hey, if you're a young professional and you want to meet other young professionals to make friends and grow your business network, come hang out. And we had maybe 30 people, maybe more, come out to that. And it's really just taken off from there. Today, we have 6 people on the board that volunteer their time, and we meet up once a month to plan events. We have an event the first Thursday of every month, and that will either be like a business after hours, like a happy hour at a local restaurant, or a more business professional development event. We've had panels. Wes, I know we've talked with you and Cindy about doing an event, maybe doing like a disc assessment or something. I think that would gain a lot of interest. I think that'd be great.
Well, we look forward to chatting more about that. I'll stress, and I need you to go back to where you're going, because I know you've got some cool stuff you want to share on this.
Yep.
With that, we may do assessments, but more specifically, we're going to teach people to recognize the different communication styles. Assessments be damned, because that's a wild difference. That's more than I can get into here, but I would have at least
I'll try to stay on track. I thought I was supposed to be keeping you on track. This is going the other way around. No, but we also try to have a lunch event every month, just to try to kind of hit a different time for people. And for listeners that want to follow along for our events, you can follow us. We post everything on our Facebook page. It's Shen Valley Young Professionals Association. And we also have a monthly newsletter that goes out via email. We also have a website, but that needs to be refreshed and revamped a little bit, updated. So that'll be useful a little later. But yeah, I kind of wanted to give a background of that because, finally leading back to your question, one of my greatest one of the events that I'm very proud of was hosted through YPA, and we did a panel event. And it was actually a VBK. We had Valley Business Keynote committee members come on as panelists. And I can't get through this either without giving a quick plug. Valley Business Keynote is this Thursday. So super excited for that. I'm sure many of your listeners have been to the event before. And I think it might be sold out this year. So I'm excited. I hear they're having a decent opening speaker. Wes, you might know him.
I've heard that.
Yep. Brad's going to be speaking. He's going to do awesome. He's going to kill it. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm super excited about that for him too.
Yeah, it's going to be great. But yeah, so this panel event, we had Valley Business Keynote committee members come and share their personal career journeys and talk about the power of networking. And it was such a valuable experience for, these young professionals in our community. The panelists were incredibly insightful and sparked a lot of meaningful conversation, just about growth and leadership and how to make authentic connections in the business community.
Yeah, I'll say that one of the things I picked up from that was the community part. When you mentioned the young professional, because there's a lot of different networking opportunities out there, and there's no shortage of where can I go, and it's just a matter of getting out. But you created a community. I would argue it's not terribly inclusive, because that young thing kind of excludes a few of us right now. Just saying. But I guess I could pretend it's age at heart. But I really love the intentionality you put and how you drew a crowd, because a lot of the stuff that's out there sometimes makes it feel like, there's just a bunch of old farts, and I want to be around people that are in the same scope, in the same place in life that I am. And that's what you've seen, right?
Yeah, for sure. And that's like the main question we get about that is, what is the age cutoff? And yeah, most young professionals groups will say like 40 and under. We're a little bit different in the fact that like we don't have paid memberships. So a lot of our events are, if you feel like you're going to benefit and you're going to enjoy coming, you're welcome to. We have a lot of recent grads. We have people who, graduated within, 5 years ago or maybe more. We have business owners, people that are self-employed come. But but really anyone's welcome. I mean, we have people, it's really almost more of like where you're at in your career versus an age limit. So maybe you've kind of just entered the business world, but you're looking to build your business network. You're certainly welcome. Or if you're looking to hire young professionals, you're welcome to come.
Very cool.
So yeah, it's definitely not limited to that. But yeah, it's been a good group.
Well, Emily, I've got to take us in a direction that ties to the theme that I've been poking at so hard because the book I released earlier this year was called Leading with a Clear Purpose. So what I'm going to ask you to do is tell us how the purpose of the teams that you've been a part of, what you've dedicated time, energy, personal finances, and so on, how it aligns with your own values, which may or may not be the topic of the next book that I'm releasing in 2026, and your individual purpose.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel fortunate to be a part of teams both at the bank and in the community that are aligned with my values and my purpose. At the bank, Burke Herbert Bank, our team is focused on building, strong, lasting relationships and delivering value to our clients. We pride ourselves in that we're not just transactional. We really want to be strategic partners and advisors for our clients. So, that sense of purpose and that purpose of trust and impact, really resonates with my values personally. And then in the community, I'm a part of community-focused teams that have more of a purpose to create connection and create opportunities to serve people in the community. So, that resonates with my personal values of leading with heart. So, whatever it is, whether I'm in the office or out in the community, my goal is always try to be part of something with a purpose that's mission driven and people centered.
So here's where I get to learn a little bit. I love asking this question. What advice would you give? And it may be a little bit weird. I don't think it will be for you because the active leadership role I've seen you take. What advice would you give to a young or aspiring, even if they're not as young, professional that's looking to advance and earn more of that leadership responsibility? I'm not knocking moving up through the corporate ladder and getting better titles, but specifically, what advice would you give to them to earn that influence that is leadership?
I love this question, and I am passionate about this. I've made a couple of videos on my social media page, and one of them was about mentorship. So the first piece of advice would be find a mentor. It could be that former boss or former teacher, whoever it is. And if you don't have any sort of mentor, it's much simpler than you might think. This is how you find one. You think of someone that you want to be like. Whether it's in work and or the way they're living, in general, find someone who you aspire to be like, and you ask them to be your mentor. Ask them for advice, ask them to meet up with you, tell them your goals. It can be a really valuable thing to do.
Yes. Emily, I just today, as we're having this conversation, I finished up the chapter that's specific to relationships and mentorship that'll be in the book that comes out in 2027. And gosh, I could go on and on and on about the folks. Sometimes they've been folks that have had an active role in my life. Sometimes it's from a distance and I'm trying to do any resource, well, we didn't have podcasts then, in a cassette tape, a book on cassette or an audio lesson or whatever that I could learn from. But those mentors have absolutely shaped us. And the closer we can get, the better. And here's something really, really neat I've learned. And I love that you said it. If you don't ask, the answer is always no. And almost every time the answer is yes, and here's when I can. It might not be right in that instant, but it's about scheduling. And what I've found is every mentor that I've asked for time, when I've showed that I've appreciated it and I've more importantly applied what they've shared, they're willing to make more time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I've definitely found that in my experience. I mean, people are more than happy to give their time, and they're actually flattered when you ask them. So those relationships that you build can be so valuable.
Yeah, it's humbling too, because I could list some very, very high profile folks that I never would have dreamed would have talked to me, let alone have invested hours and hours and hours consistently in my life. I'm going, praise God for this. But again, it's the ask part. So I really appreciate you sharing that. That's the last of my planned questions. Here's one I always like to spring at the end. What if I not ask you that I should be asking you?
Oh man, I don't know. I really appreciate you. You having me on here, and my hope is that hopefully we talked about something today that resonates with the listeners. And I always say that even if we've inspired one person to think differently about how they show up in their work and their leadership or their community, then this conversation was a success. So hopefully we inspired people to lead with a clear purpose.
So I've put the links to the Shin Valley YPA, your Banking with Emily on Facebook, your LinkedIn profile, and you mentioned the event next June. So I put the link to that in as well. So all that will be wherever this is accessible, LinkedIn, Facebook, on the podcast, and so on and so forth. So read through the description if you're accessing this. Here's what I would encourage anybody that's catching this to do. Connect with Emily. Make sure you're paying attention. Make sure you learn who she is, and make sure that those connections are solid both ways, because she is very intentional about making good connections between good people. Hey, that's probably where Emily and Brad and Cindy and myself have connected the most, because we enjoy connecting good people. Sometimes we connect people just anyway, but if they prove they're not good, we don't continue doing it. That's their choice, not ours, right? You don't need to agree with that if you don't want to. I'm just saying that because that's the truth of the way the world works.
Yes.
And if you're accessing this wherever, whether it's live with us or on the podcast or wherever, and you've got a need for continuing education credit, Cindy and I over the last several years have invested heavily, time and resources, and monetarily too, but that's not been as big of a deal, into being approved providers with the Society for Human Resource Management and the Human Resource Certification Institute. Our full Leading at the Next Level program now has, over 160 hours worth of lessons in that are all approved for credit through those entities, and some others too that I didn't list. It's a little bit more wonky and explaining, so I won't bother you here with it. But if you have a need for that continuing education credit, reach out to us at admin@dove-development.net. Be happy to hook you up with a 45-day all-access trial to kick the tires, get the credits if you need them. If it's more ongoing that you need, we even do some live stuff through there where we end the recording, go to Q&A, and help folks work through the action steps that they're working to implement to get measurable results in their organization. If nothing else, connect with Emily. I really appreciate having the conversation with you, Emily. Thanks for taking the time, and more importantly, thanks for the friendship.
Wes, thanks so much. Thanks for creating this space, and thanks for the conversation today. I really appreciate it.
You betcha. Look forward to seeing everyone soon. And Emily, we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks so much.
See ya.